Ellen Foster and how her friendship with Starletta changed her. Before Starletta, Ellen had many prejudices against the African American community. These prejudices were taught to her via her environment when she was raised and taken care of by her aunt and her grandmother. Her grandmother is a well-off white woman with many black servants who is seen saying the N-word multiple times throughout the novel. Her aunt also Ellen Foster and how her friendship with Starletta changed her. Before Starletta, Ellen had many prejudices against the African American community. These prejudices were taught to her via her environment when she was raised and taken care of by her aunt and her grandmother. Her grandmother is a well-off white woman with many black servants who is seen saying the N-word multiple times throughout the novel. Her aunt also taught Ellen these prejudices, which is seen when Ellen stated, "My aunt is so glad to be out of a colored town. She unlocks her door now because she feels safe." This shows that at some point Ellen's aunt had stated this or mentioned this to her, showing how Ellen's aunt has this prejudice and causing Ellen to possibly believe that since there are more black people in this town or in this area, we're more unsafe, causing her to think that the black people are what's causing it to be unsafe. While Ellen was at Starletta's house, Ellen refused to eat or drink any of their food or beverages because, for example, when she was offered a biscuit, she thought to herself and said that she couldn't eat a quote-unquote colored biscuit from Starletta and her family. This shows how she had such a superiority complex in her mind about her being white versus them being black. She thought that white people were superior to black people, and this is shown in this time and in this scene where she is offered food and beverages and she refuses to eat them because they are from a colored glass or they are a colored biscuit. She couldn't eat this colored food. So this shows how she believed that she was superior to them or that the black people were inferior to them referring to white people, which is explicitly shown in this scene. While Ellen is at Starletta's house, we notice what a drastic difference there is between Ellen and Starletta's home environments. Starletta lives in a loving, stable home, which is opposite to Ellen's home. In Starletta's house, everyone is caring towards one another and shows affection to one another. Starletta never has to worry about when she's eating another meal, and she never had to worry about paying the bills for her parents. These are all issues that Ellen had to face. There was no affection shown in Ellen's home, and her home was very neglectful and abusive. She often had to take care of her parents, whether her father was drunk or her mother was unable to take care of herself. She also had to pay bills and had to worry about when she was going to eat next, oftentimes having to make food for herself if she wants anything to eat. This opens Ellen's eyes to the fact that this race that she deems inferior based on her own prejudice and racism, they are not different to her, and they are not inferior. Starletta and her family welcomed Ellen into their home, even when Ellen wasn't welcomed in her own. On Christmas Eve, when Ellen's father didn't come home, Starletta and her family welcomed Ellen into their home with open arms in order to share a meal together. Starletta and her family even got Ellen a present, a sweater. Ellen states that the sweater didn't look colored at all. After receiving the sweater, Ellen felt overwhelmed, and she felt as if she might cry, as she wasn't used to people buying her things, especially for holidays. This interaction really opened Ellen's eyes to who these people really are, looking past Starletta and her family's race and into their personalities and who they are as people. Ellen closes this novel with this line: "In all this time, I thought I had the hardest row to hoe." This line, Ellen acknowledges the struggles that Starletta and her family face through racism. This is when we finally see this character development that her friendship with Starletta has caused her to have. She has completely abandoned all of her racist thoughts and prejudices and incorrect assumptions based on somebody's race or the color of their skin. This is when you can see that Ellen was shaped by the relationship and her friendship with Starletta. She was faced with this black person and this black family that went against what her prejudice made her believe. So she finally acknowledged that her prejudice was always incorrect and her thoughts were always incorrect. These people are not inferior. These people are not different from them. They are just another race. Now we can look back at how she was before Starletta. She was very prejudiced. She was shaped by her racist white family that believed that black people made things unsafe. They were supposed to be servants. Her family tossed around the N-word a lot, specifically her grandmother. So she was shaped in this realm where white people were superior. But then she meets Starletta. The first thing she thinks when she meets Starletta is that, oh, she eats dirt with her mom. She's already judging her. And then she refuses to eat the colored biscuit when she's over at her house. But then she's welcomed with open arms into this family's house on Christmas Eve when her father didn't come home, and she finally realizes after they get a present and they treat her like family that people aren't inferior to her. They are just people, and they are kind, and they are equal to her. And without Starletta's friendship, she would have never gotten that character development to abandon those prejudices.